Hey legends, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Rodney Stewart, and we're getting into a film that I've enjoyed for literally a lifetime right now. This is 1981's 9 to 5. Absolutely fantastic little movie. I haven't seen it in years, but my brother managed to record it off television one evening there, and we sat down and watched it again. It's one of the first memories I have as a small child when it comes to films and whatnot is getting our first ever VHS. And when my parents bought that, our VHS player I should say, when they bought that, the deal was you got like, it was either 6 months to a year's worth of rentals over the weekends and whatnot. So like we were constantly back and forth to the store. We bought it and we were getting all these movies to check out, and 9 to 5 was one of them. And it's honestly a fantastic movie that has got so much going on in it that literally, like, I've seen it quite a few times over my lifetime, but at this point probably 20 years now since I watched it, and honestly there's a few parts in it that I forgot, and it's just as enjoyable right now as it was the very first time I watched it. Now in this one here we have Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton is in there as well, Dabney Coleman, Elizabeth Wilson, Sterling Hayden's in there. Great little movie, and like the song 9 to 5 sang by Dolly Parton, of course, opens up the movie as well. It's like we've all heard that song, and like literally even these days, if you happen to be scanning across radio stations, chances are you're going to come across 9 to 5. Classic song from a classic movie. It had a budget of $10 million, and at the box office it made $103.3 million. Absolutely fantastic movie. So essentially in this one, a reserved former housewife, Judy, played by Jane Fonda, starts to work as a secretary at this company, Consolidated Companies, under the supervision of Lily Tomlin. And their boss, Franklin Hart, is sexist, misogynist, whatever way you want to call it. He's a crap boss to work for, essentially. Dolly Parton is his secretary. He's constantly trying to make moves on her. She turns on him, in a very comical way. And it just, the beginning of the film is essentially him being sexist and patronising towards all the woman that's working for him, and eventually they all start turning on him. And they at one point, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton, they all walk out of the office one day and they go to a bar to get drunk because of his conduct in the workplace. And while they're there, Lily Tomlin comes across a wacky cigarette that her son left in her purse for her. Want to be careful on how I say some of these things these days. You never know what's a sketchy word on YouTube at the minute, so I'm being very careful what I'm talking about. But they go and they smoke this wacky cigarette that evening, and they start fantasizing in different ways that if they had the opportunity to take the boss out, essentially, they could just end him. And you have all these fantasy sequences from each of them. Jane Fonda, who doesn't like him because of the fact that he has the head of a deer in his office. So her fantasy would be her and the rest of the workers hunting him down like an animal and mounting his head on the wall at the end of it. Very comical sequence in the movie. Dolly Parton, of course, she's country and western through and through, and she has this fantasy of, switching it back on him. He's sexist, always trying to hit on her, get her in the bed and whatnot. So in her fantasy, she would turn that around on him, make him feel small and whatnot, and use her feminine wiles against him. And at the end of it, she pretty much hog ties him like a like a cow in a yes, a country and western style. It's fantastic. And then we get round to Lily Tomlin's fantasy sequence, and that's very, she said it would have to be something colourful and whatnot, and very cartoonish horror sort of style. So she, in her fantasy sequence, she is in the classic kind of Disney princess costume, and there's all these cartoon animals in the sequence. It's probably one of the first times, well, it wouldn't actually be the first time, like Disney's probably done it before 9 to 5, but you get the live action cartoon together in the sequence. Very, very well done as well. And her fantasy is she would put in the fantasy sequence, she has this ring that she's wearing, and she opens it up and she tips in this like powder, and of course it's poison, and that's why she would take him out in the fantasy sequence. But that's all it is at this point. It's fantasy. And the next day at work, he takes more and more credit for the work that she's putting in. She doesn't get a promotion that she's after, and she's angry beyond belief. And as she goes to make coffee for him, they've run out of the sweetener that they need, but she's got some, or she thinks she bought some on her break from work that morning. But at this point, she's that angry, she picks out the wrong box, and it's actually rat poison, and accidentally puts it into his coffee and takes it to him. And as she goes off to do something else, and when she comes back, she finds out that an ambulance has just came and taken the boss to the hospital. And of course, the alarm bells start ringing in her head. She thinks that she has poisoned the boss, essentially. And her and Jane Fonda and Dolly Parton get into this situation where they have to try and they feel to cover their tracks, more or less. But I'm not going to tell you anything more really about the movie at this point. It's unreal, the places this film goes. And the one little spoiler I will give you is that the boss was not poisoned. He had fallen faulty off his chair as he went to drink the coffee. He fell, hit his head, got knocked out, and taken to hospital for that. So he gets out of hospital, and there's a whole sequence where the girls come across a dead body that they think's him in the hospital, and panicking, Lily Tomlin decides we're going to have to steal the body and do something with it. But discovering their mistake, they manage to get out of that situation. But there is another worker at the company that's on the boss's side, and she's the sort of person that carries all the stories back to the boss. So he figures out that the girls were thinking about killing them, and he's going to take them to court. He's going to make their lives hell because of what they tried to do the night before. So it goes from a weird situation to a bad situation to a messed up situation. And when as I say, 20 years since I've seen the movie, I thought I was getting closer to the end of the film than I was while watching it this last time. But yes, there is. They end up in a cat and mouse game between the three girls and the boss of what he's going to do and what they can do. And yes, it's interesting what happens when it comes up to the end of this movie. It's fantastic. I don't know how to actually make this episode without really spoiling it for you, but what I've told you so far is literally probably the first probably not even half of the movie, so there's a heck of a lot more to come, and it's a genuine treat. This movie, it's one of these old school films that you don't see much of anymore. I don't know. It's weird. It's kind of one of these like timeless little movies that's just brilliant, and a lot of people maybe think, 9 to 5, that's a woman's movie. It's not. It's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. If you've never seen 9 to 5, I would highly recommend you checking it out. And I haven't spoiled it too badly for you. I really haven't. I've only given you the setup, essentially, of this movie. But how they get to the end of the movie and what happens at the end of the movie is absolutely brilliant. Well done, well written, well acted. It's a great movie all around, and one of my all-time favourites.